This video was made before the great George Foreman's passing and will not be monetized. It is not intended as a tribute. Take it as a fun breakdown and see the link at the end for a more fitting video that covers George's many achievements and inspirational story. It was 1987 and Big George Foreman had returned to boxing after a 10-year retirement. In time, he would reveal himself to still be an elite-level top boxer. But for now, he was viewed by most as another old-timer who couldn't let go. So supposedly, George would be a perfect challenger for a champion looking to move up from cruiserweight and test out the heavyweight waters. Enter Dwight Muhammad Qawi, the shortest heavyweight of all time, standing 5'7" officially and probably a bit shorter in reality. Qawi was no spring chicken, but he had kept himself very active against elite competition, while prior to coming back, George had been absent from the ring for 10 years. Qawi won light heavyweight and cruiserweight titles, engaging in epic bouts with the likes of Evander Holyfield, Zahad Muhammad, and Michael Spinks. He had already risen higher than anyone thought was logically possible, and now he would try to take one more step up, the final step to the pinnacle of boxing. Heavyweight, where towering chaotic monsters unleashed atomic forces that would obliterate ordinary men. It was now time to determine if Qawi could truly walk amongst the giants. The Camden buzzsaw exploded into action, using the two staples of the aggressive short fighter, the overhand and leaping gazelle hook. Foreman had acquired a cross-guard defense from his mentor, Archie Moore, before returning to the ring, which negated some of the bad effects seen when a boxer ages past his prime. By hiding behind his new armor, he could slow the pace and pick his punches, relying more on craft and power than cardio. He used it now to shield himself, pressing in behind his guard, then cross-framing to push Qawi away. Muscling forward, Foreman looked to use his sheer size to herd Qawi into the corner. Qawi used his well-practiced head movement to deal with Foreman's looping punches. But Foreman was no fool, and used varied combinations and delayed rhythm to trip Qawi up. More than a few times, he was tricked into weaving into a jarring hook. Still, Qawi worked in counters, hurling gnarly overhands that bit into Foreman's temple.
George Foreman looks ponderous and slow right now, and he's taking right hands to the head, and that one shook him.
The first round came to a close, and Qawi had held up to Foreman's legendary punches surprisingly well, and landed some big shots of his own. Still, the sheer size difference in physicality was already telling in Qawi's constant retreat. He would have to show more if he hoped to succeed. The bell announced the second, and Qawi showed little improvement at first.
Well, at least it shows he can do it.
Foreman mixed in jab cross, jab uppercut, and jab body hook combinations. By pairing such similar combinations, Foreman confounded Qawi. The brilliance of this basic but effective combination pairing tactic was that the cross, uppercut, and hook all required different defenses, and when Qawi defended the wrong punch, the real punch would find the mark.
He's standing in there with him. Oh, that one hurt Qawi. He's hurt now.
But in the last 30 seconds, the Camden buzzsaw got fired up. Under pressure, some men wilt, some explode into action. Punching with Foreman seemed like a suicidal idea, but Qawi intercepted Big George's jabs with crushing haymaker after crushing haymaker. George's chin didn't chip, let alone crack. He lumbered forward like a stone colossus, impervious to punishment that would have sent a normal man into a coma. Regardless, Qawi was proving he was no pushover. He was a legitimate threat.
The ropes. Well, an interesting round two, to say the least.
Certainly was. George looked like he was getting it done pretty good, starting to get his timing down a little bit. Qawi came back with a series of punches, and they all landed.
Foreman paid him back with interest in the third, raking a tearing right into his kidney that impacted with the noise of a gunshot. The constant pairing of Foreman's jab right with the jab body shot had paid off in a masterful kidney shot. The smallest heavyweight of all time kept his footing for only a moment, then collapsed to the canvas. But it was unclear to the commentators and the ref if Qawi fell because of the punch, because of Foreman leaning his weight on him, or to call attention and make a point about Foreman leaning his weight on him. So, the ref called no knockdown, and the fight continued. Foreman was sure about what had caused the knockdown and went in for the kill. Qawi did his best to weave under the big man's blows. With veteran patience, he threw in jabs, the surprise linear shot stopping Qawi from weaving into a defensive rhythm. With pinpoint precision, George aimed a tight 1-2 into the small crack in Qawi's guard. The light heavyweight champion responded with a hook, and followed up with another hook that Foreman didn't quite manage to roll back. Now Qawi was again in a firefight with the most terrifying boxer of all time. The giant was connecting, but astonishingly, Qawi was taking the shots. And his shoulder roll counter rights were making a major statement to the judges, the crowd, pretty much everyone but the man they were landing on.
Big left hook by Qawi.
Dwight Qawi doing what Guido Trani did so well, those overhand hooks.
By the end of the round, you could almost forget that Qawi had been down on the canvas. Of course, forgotten or not, the damage was still there. In round 4, Foreman utilized his weight to further tax the smaller man's stamina.
There's all that pushing that I was telling you about that they were working on in the gym. In my opinion, you should be just working on punching with George, not pushing.
But when Foreman switched to leading rights, Qawi got inside his timing and landed a thunderous counter. Even now, it did little to impress Foreman. George got a warning for backhanding, but kept up with the leading rear hands, until Qawi was conditioned to expect them. Once the big man had a clear read on how Qawi defended his right, an inside bob with a high guard shield, he pawed a throwaway cross and let Qawi duck his own head into his follow-up lead uppercut. Now it was Qawi's turn to show astonishing solidity of the chin. Foreman bullied Qawi into corners, but he rose to the challenge, rattling multi-power punch combinations. When Foreman expertly set up knockout punches off of weaker punches, Qawi took them and responded right back. The commentators began to question Foreman and his return to the ring. Was he truly this diminished? Or perhaps it was something they did not suggest. Was Qawi really this good?
For the cynics that didn't think George Foreman should be doing this, they're probably making their case right now because he's not looking good.
Qawi charged into the fifth like a raging bull. Foreman took a hard right hook that actually seemed to frustrate, if not worry him. Unable to maintain his ideal range, Foreman got careless, turning his usual frames into elbows, and prompting a stern warning from the ref. After Foreman used a far more legitimate frame, Qawi dramatically collapsed to the canvas. The theatrics worked, and George got one more warning. Qawi would have his room to fight, but perhaps he should have been careful what he wished for. Now that Foreman's inclination was to scrap, he was serving up endless uppercuts. Throughout the fight, Qawi had done a decent job slipping most, but at this pace, they were making it difficult for him to fight from his preferred crouch. Difficult, but not impossible.
I'm waiting for Qawi. There it is. I was waiting for Qawi to come up with that sneak left hook down.
And he got the right hand after it. And the upper. Good. And so Dwight Muhammad Qawi explodes a bit here in the fifth round. Foreman with his own uppercut. Things heat up. That'll do it for round 5 in this 10-round heavyweight matchup.
The technical brawling endured into the sixth. Qawi's unpredictable haymakers coming up from below Foreman's line of vision, making it hard for the giant to defend.
About as much snap as I've seen George have on a punch tonight. A little left hook.
He has a Qawi for low blows. Qawi landing a couple of short right hand and a left hook. Another hook by Qawi.
And Foreman's expertly placed punches finding holes in Qawi's multiple guards. His bulldozing uppercuts were made possible by his well-crafted combinations. Each punch set up the next, and Qawi couldn't always keep up. A cross clipped the smaller man, and Foreman timed his dip to land an uppercut that would have put any normal man in the hospital. So confident in his power and the shot he had unleashed, Foreman walked away and let his competitor fall to the canvas. But Qawi did not fall. Surprised, Foreman turned to finish the job. But there was no need. Qawi's body finally registered the blow, and he fell to the floor. Or so he wanted Foreman to think. Suddenly straightening up, Qawi hurled a tremendous overhand. Foreman shoulder rolled on instinct, then got back to work, unperturbed, all business. That uppercut had to have done something, but despite setting up his attacks off his stellar jabs, Foreman couldn't put the undersized heavyweight down. However, what works once in boxing will tend to work again, and the exact same jab cross to uppercut sequence played out once more. Having learned his lesson, this time Foreman followed up with the lashing cross and a sledgehammer of an uppercut. Now Qawi truly could not keep his feet, but the ropes had his back. The ref called no knockdown, and Qawi survived the round on his feet.
That'll do it for round 6.
Qawi gets by the next round. I think we're going to find things very, very interesting. Depends on how much will Qawi has right now.
But although Qawi came out swinging in the 7th, the collected damage and massive fatigue were overwhelmingly evident. Foreman was timing his jab cross lead uppercut combo better and better. After a crushing body blow, the last drops of energy and will seemed to leak out of Qawi. Another couple of blows, and he wisely turned away and lived to fight another day. What people didn't know back then was that Foreman was an unstoppable force even all these years after his retirement. Qawi had put up a legendary effort, and if he had tried his luck against another heavyweight, things might have turned out very differently. But George was the most terrifying puncher the world had ever seen, and he would prove he still had his power and an even greater ring IQ when he eventually took back his championship 2 decades after first winning it. Qawi would move back down and give fans years of entertainment with his considerable skill and willpower.
He was playing it real good. He played my jab, but as a rule, it caught up with him. The toll did catch up with him. He's a fine man, brave individual.
It was a rare mismatch that the boxing world may never see again, but one very much worth remembering. Be sure to check out the upcoming video from the new team. They put a lot of work into it, and I think you'll enjoy it. Out soon. From the Modern Martial Artist, this has been David Christian, wishing you happy training.